Hey, Gloucester Township. I'm Joe Allen. This is Keith Gibbons. This is the Gloucester GT Observer podcast. We're doing a special episode this time.
Special episode on the MUA. It's a big hot topic that's been going on around town. We had organized a meeting where people could come and listen to some expert speakers, and today's podcast is one of those expert speakers here with us in studio.
Yeah, you've heard this guy speak at several of our meetings. If you attended our first MUA meeting over at the Knights of Columbus, he spoke there too. He is holds some certifications that I cannot Why
don't we have him introduce himself?
Not recall. So
today
here
we
he
have
is.
Dennis Palmer.
Hi, thank you guys. Thank you very much for the invitation today. My background is 46 years in the water resources, water environment field.
Okay.
Licensed professional engineer in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. Licensed wastewater operator. Actually, I sat on the state licensing board for wastewater operators. I worked 38 years actually for utilities. And I started my career originally at NJDEP in Division of Water Resources when I was in the enforcement group. So I used to go out and inspect treatment plants,
Okay.
write orders, take enforcement action against facilities. And I gave testimony before the local finance board, and one of my parts of my testimony was that I thought authorities were the best working model, best business model to handle this kind of wastewater facilities. The reasons why is they're very focused. And I've given this testimony before the Senate and the Assembly and committees too when it came to different bills. Authorities can give a laser focus on complex DEP permit issues, complex environmental issues, because they can be very focused. Whereas I say a town has a lot of distractions. They have police, they have fire, they have public works, they have public safety, they have playgrounds, they have leaf and snow removal. All those things are a distraction, and it comes down to where the resources go. But I find authorities, and also my years at DEP working in the enforcement group, that also had found, my experience was authorities seem to be better run because they have that focus. The facilities seem to run well as well. So,
Gotcha. So, Dennis, the difference between those things, like when people know it as the MUA, it was an authority, the Municipal
Correct.
Utility Authority,
Yeah,
right?
there's a long history. Gloucester Township first set up a sewer authority, I guess it was in the 60s. And the law was changed where you can also have an MUA. And MUA gave more flexibility to do other things, such as they went into compost and recycling at a time. So that was a change. You go back, there are some old sewers that say Gloucester Township Sewer Authority on them. But anyway, it's a long history. But authorities are a separate body from the municipality or the county.
Right.
I had worked at Camden County MUA for 8 years during the early phases of construction. It was a great experience to see $500 million worth of construction and cleanup of the lakes and streams in Camden County when that was being done.
Gotcha.
Definitely needed. But authorities, I say, they can give a better focus on completing environmental tasks.
Okay, so we're going to try and kind of go back to the beginning of this process here, and you had mentioned going to the local finance board. That's kind of where this all started. Surfacing as saying the township wanted to. What year was that? 23 or 22 when that started? 23, I believe it was.
23.
Yeah, I think it was only exactly 23.
Yeah, so they started by saying we're going to dissolve the authority, the MUA. And we're going to take it in-house. We know we have all these distractions of the public works, the police, all stuff. We're going to save you guys money somehow, and take this in-house. They were never actually able to answer what they were going to do to save money. They just said that we expect to save money.
The only thing that they could come up with was that I believe it was like Pete Heinball did the calculations.
Yeah, it was like $70,000 or something.
You saved us $70,000.
Right.
Like that's.
Oh, you would get rid of the board of commissioners. So there's
Right.
whatever number of board they had. I think they had alternates there. So maybe
Right.
7 members. They get usually a stipend of some amount. I don't know what the amount was, but he had a stipend that he got paid.
But
I guess if you didn't need it, you got rid of the authority had a solicitor. So if you use the city township solicitor,
Right.
you eliminate that. I mean, so there's a couple of different expenses that happen.
So part of that process was they needed to get approval from the local finance board. That doesn't mean that the local finance board is saying this is the best thing to do. It just says that they're approving that you are going to, be doing this. It's kind of like just a box that you need to check. It's not the local finance board didn't put this in front of us and say, hey, you need to do this because this is what the best financial decision is. But however, that's kind of the the narrative that Tom Cardis went with every single time that it was asked. It said the local finance board told us that we need to do this. So what do you know about the local finance board's approval?
I don't believe that's true. I mean, same thing. If the town borrows money or an authority borrows money, you have to go to the local finance board.
Right.
If you dissolve authority, it has to be approved because they want to see a plan that all the bills will be paid, that also any debt that's been incurred by the authority,
right,
that also continues to be paid. So the authority had some debt associated with loans from the local finance board,
right,
and those had to be taken care of too. But mostly it's to see bills be paid and outstanding loans be paid. In the case of that. So they went through that process to demonstrate those things. And
right.
One of the things I thought was disingenuous coming out of that was another speaker besides myself had specifically asked a question at the hearing to the local finance board. And that was a Zoom meeting.
Yes.
So you also had mayor plus many of the senior staff were also on the Zoom meeting, all sitting around the conference table. I think it's one that's in the council chamber room. And the other speaker said, are there any plans to sell the system in the next 5 years, if there are any? And Mr. Winitsky, I'm going to say, he's with Dagan and Bateman. He's the kind of like a bond counsel, bond attorney for the township. Said,
okay.
He goes, yes, I defer. It is not my understanding that there's any expectation to sell the system, either global services or sanitaries, right? I think that right was mayor and other people on the meeting. Right. I can't possibly speak to what a new mayor or a new governing body may or may not do, but for the purpose of those who are on the call today, there's no current expectation to sell either portion of the sewer system.
So that does when they put that question in of saying right, and then it's also saying I don't know what a new administration or council whatever would do. Does that give them the out to be like, I didn't lie then? There is, now that an election happened, and since that election, we have a new member of council, so that becomes a different body.
It wasn't a change in party, as an example. The mayor's still there. The vast majority of the board is still there.
So, in your opinion, it's still a disingenuous statement?
Yeah, it was disingenuous to say something like that. And then
So
within a year, turn around and sell the authority. And the authority even went back and reviewed the engineer reports and other things that were done going into that hearing. The engineer's reports, the system was well run,
right,
is well capitalized. The problem is there are some towns who have been taken over and sold to private people who were not well run, not well capitalized, had not made investment in their infrastructure.
Right.
The infrastructure is old, or they did not have a capital reserve. That if there was an emergency, a pipeline collapse or some other major mechanical or other structural problem, it did not have the money to do it. This authority was well run. Its facilities were kept up. They had 7 projects they want to do, including some backup generators and a couple pumping stations. Right. But they had multi-millions of dollars sitting in a capital reserve fund.
And this is all proven out by a report that the taxpayers paid for to take in front of the local finance board to prove this to them, correct?
It was their own engineer
who
said all these things.
Right, Remington and Vernick.
Remington and Vernick, right, exactly.
So now with that going in front of the local finance board, that freed up about, I forget the exact number, it was like $6 million-ish dollars. That was in a surplus account that was for catastrophic failure.
Not surplus per se.
Right.
Authorities in the budgetary process is different than town. You don't have surpluses.
But it's there for an emergency
That's right. It's
repair.
It's for capital reserve. It's to build capital projects, pipelines, pumps, pumping stations, generators. If you need a very large, big piece of equipment, a vehicle.
And that was kind of demonized as like that because their budget is only a $5 million a year budget to operate. They have this $6 million, excess money, whatever you wanted to call it, name it, whatever you want to make it sound good for your narrative of the story. They kind of demonize that. At that same, I look at it saying is at the same rate that we're paying, the $46 a quarter, we were able to generate that much. I don't know. I think it's fiscally responsible.
Well, it is. You want to have a reserve. And then also in their last audit, they identified a 5-year capital plan that included $21 million worth of projects.
Okay.
So the $6 million, I don't think was an obscene amount of money to have. I mean, they just had a recent collapse of a pipeline or something. They want to borrow another $300,000.
Right.
Now, it's much more fiscally responsible to have a capital reserve.
Right.
Because when you go to borrow money, you have all kinds of expenses.
Yeah.
If you're going to go out with a bond, either a bond anticipation note and eventually then a bond,
Right.
or otherwise, you have to get a ratings from Standard & Poor or Moody's. That costs money.
Right.
You have to hire bond counsel. That costs money. You usually have to do some sort of engineer report, engineer letter. That
Right.
costs money. You need your own legal staff. That costs money.
Right.
And then when you go to issue a bond, you have underwriting fees by the underwriter, who's basically putting the money up until they sell the
Right.
bonds.
So bottom line, it's more fiscally responsible to have it there, which is what we had. So now the town goes in and dissolves the MUA, pulls that $6 million. They had to pay down debt like as you had mentioned, and they were also restricted to how much they could use right away. But that still helped balance their budget or put money into the general budget for the municipal side of things. At that time also they were asked, is there any plans of ever doing anything, privatizing this? And then the quote from Dan Hutchison up there was to Pete Heinbaugh, I remember specifically, where he said, "This preserves it in the town."
Yeah.
That were his words. This preserves it in the town. And Pete said, "Yeah, today. I'm talking about in the future. Is there any plans?" And he's like, we're not voting on, selling it. Which he's not lying, saying at that point in time, that night, they were not voting on selling it. However, fast forward a few months later, now it just pops up and it says, hey, we're going to go see how much money we can get for this.
Right. Yeah, and when questioned, Tom Carter said, there's no plans.
Oh, we also had at that same meeting, too, where they asked, isn't the mayor's job with a public water sewer
that's
company?
The one where nobody on
and
council knew what he
everyone
did.
there was just like, I don't know. Where does he work?
Yeah, what's that title again?
Dave Mayer?
Yeah, Mike Mignon says, Can you repeat what his title is again?
Repeat that?
I think nobody knew. Nobody knew what it was.
Oh, and then they said, well, this isn't coming from us. This is his words on his financial disclosure form. And their excuse was, I never read the financial disclosure form, so I don't know what it says. Okay, that sounds. Either way, so now we fast forward a few months and it goes up for sale, and there's a lot of people, I guess, kind of upset around this whole thing because they understand what the impacts are to this. And Dennis, have you gone through this in other towns? What financial costs and things?
I think two examples right here in Camden County.
Okay.
And the first one is Haddonfield sold their system some years ago.
Now, Haddonfield is a very old town, right? It's
an old town. Some of the systems is older as well. And it needed some capital improvements, no question about it. But they have gone beyond their 5-year where the rates were supposed to stay flat, and then there's a cap on rates. So this year, there's a proposal to raise the rates 50%, and to raise them to $44.47 a month.
Okay.
We pay about that per quarter.
Right.
So multiply that up by $44 a month. You're looking at over $500 a year.
Right.
For the local system.
Yeah, so
and you
for
still pay the
simple
CCM rates, and you still pay the CCM rates. That's significant. So 50% rate increase there.
Right.
The other, excuse me, in Mount Ephraim, right here in Iron County, in the last rate filing, they're also looking for a 45% rate increase there.
Okay. So these are local. You could, drive right to them town examples that you can go ask people about this.
And they have rate increases across the state. They just acquired Salem City, and another older system. We'll see in 5 years how high those rates are as well once they get past the whatever low rate or low increase or no increase for a couple of years. But so it happens every. You got several things. I know they hid behind the fact that our rates are covered by BPU, but if you do capital infrastructure, you immediately get those costs back.
Right.
If you do improvements, so those costs and they go into your system.
So Joe, we did have on our other podcast. I don't know if you can easily see which one it was, but that kind of topic was brought up by Kate Delaney, who was part of the Food and Water Watch, and kind of brought up that we kind of all knew that this was going to be the excuse, like Dennis had mentioned here, that they're going to hide behind. You guys are protected. That BPU is going to protect your rates, and we had gone over saying about for instance, with Comcast, your rate might be $100, but then after all the fees and this and that and the other thing, your bill's $225 a month, right? You were just explaining this?
Yeah, this was the Resiliency and Environmental Systems Investment Charge Program. where they can basically bypass some of those protections
Right.
if they feel the need to do repairs, or I believe it's even future,
Right.
any future products.
Yeah, there's a bill I know I'm active in the Association of Environmental Authorities. That's water and wastewater improvement authorities throughout the state, and that bill was going through to look at not only costs that you've already expended, but you could raise your rates today for costs you may do in the future, and that doesn't seem equitable.
Yeah.
And,
So do we want to play a clip? I know we weren't talking about doing clips here, but clip 5 actually does this.
Yeah, we can play it.
So let me see. I don't know how to go back to.
Good evening, Kate Delaney. I live in Collingswood, and I'm the South Jersey organizer for New Jersey Food and Water Watch. And actually, what I want to share connects to the question that was just asked about rate hikes for New Jersey American Water. I think hopefully other people will want to raise what seems like the larger than life glaring conflict of interest that you are selling the public sewer system to the company that your mayor works for. I want to talk about this idea of rate hikes and that there are various safeguards in place that American Water is going to cooperate with. At the end of last year, the beginning of this year, the organization I work for, Food and Water Watch, was lobbying against a bill. This is S3184, called RASIC, which stands for the Resiliency and Environmental System Investment Charge, kind of Orwellian as so many bills in New Jersey are. And I can attest that your mayor was there to support it, and I was there to oppose it. I saw him in the room. So this bill really was about giving private water companies to raise rates and evade proper oversight and ratepayer protections by exempting a broad range of infrastructure work from BPU's current rate-making authority. Most egregious of all, RASIC will allow private companies to bill ratepayers for future work. Let me repeat that. New Jersey American Water will be able to raise rates for work that they say they are going to do on your system. And as a customer of New Jersey American Water, you will also be footing the bill for other systems they improve. So they just bought the systems in Salem. Congratulations, you'll be paying for the work in Salem as well.
Right. So this purchasing of other towns also falls on existing customers. So when
Correct.
when you're buying a system like Salem. So Dennis, I don't know how much do you know about Salem? Salem's another really extremely old.
It's an older system. They built a new treatment plant. I inspected it back in the 70s, so it's been a long time since I've been to Salem City's plant. That was an older facility.
Right.
But it was also, I think, had the same thing. It was undercapitalized. They hadn't put the money into it.
Right. So which leads you to now you have problems to deal with that cost a lot more money to today than it did years ago when you didn't keep up on it. So if you're a customer of a New Jersey American Water, that now falls on your pull of money that you have to get this company back. Like they're owed that money back, right?
Right.
Can you explain how that worked with?
Well, there's a phrase that's used in New Jersey, used in Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania is really getting tired of it. That's the fair market value. There was some movement to adopt bills in Pennsylvania to eliminate that fair market value. There's no incentive when the water company or a private facility is purchasing a public facility to come in at a lower and best price. It's the opposite when you do public bidding. You award to the lowest responsive bidder. In this case, how high is the sky? Because two things, it's not limited, and as well as that will go into their future rate when they go to the statewide rate basis. That'll then be pushed off to everyone else. And it's interesting, the dollar amount was huge, $143 million for the facility. When you look at New Jersey, when you look at
Aqua.
the $50-some million of Aqua, which was more in line if you look at the audits and how much the infrastructure value was. It was about that same amount, $50 million. Also, I found troubling or why is New Jersey American is planning $90 million worth of future investment compared to $25 million by Aqua, and more so that I was saying the 5-year capital plan in the last audit identified $21 million worth of improvements, pump station upgrades, probably some pipelines, some generators, either new pumps and or new pumping stations to eliminate. As I say, it's kind of gilding the lily, a gold plating something that raises costs, which then go into the rate structure.
Yeah, I don't know what gilding the lily
You haven't heard that phrase? I've heard lawyers use it more than anything. But
Gotcha.
You take some that's already very pretty, And
Okay.
you try to make it prettier by gilding the lily, add more to it.
Gotcha.
So it's
The lipstick on a
gold,
pig.
You're gold plating something that.
Making it look better than it actually is.
Would they really have any?
Yeah.
What would the reasoning be for that, from their perspective?
Well, he kind of, not to jump in and answer the question, but he was explaining, and it makes perfect sense when the town is looking to get. They're not looking for the lowest bidder. It's not like we're going to put in, a bridge that failed over top of the creek on the bike trail, and this bidder was $140,000. This one was $300,000. We have to go with the 143 because that's the responsible thing to do. In this case here, it's the exact opposite. It's you want to get the highest amount of money for it. They have every right to get all that money back.
Oh, I get
and
that
that puts that bill, back on there. I know I'm just explaining for somebody.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
it's just listening.
On the other side
for
too,
here.
it takes that. If you look at that that multi-million-dollar contract, basically puts a almost $5,000 debt on every user. They have about 30,000 users. Divide 30,000 into the 143 million. 4,700, almost $5,000.
Right, we were
So
talking about that before.
You're moving the debt responsibility and the debt burden from the rate.
From the taxpayers to the
Especially paying
ratepayers.
from what the tax it goes to pay off the township's taxes.
Right.
It moves it to ratepayers.
Right.
Not all ratepayers and taxpayers are the same. As an example,
Right. We were
Not-
explaining this yesterday on our show about that being the case, where if you have land that doesn't have a sewer hookup because it's set up as whatever, it's vacant right now or
a
whatever it
septic
is,
system.
or it has a septic system, you still have to pay property taxes. So when they sell this system, the debt that your property taxes are helping to pay down the debt service each year would benefit from that, but you're putting that cost onto the ratepayers of the
And you
sewer
can't-
system.
you- I mean, an argument is at least you can, even with the salt limits, you can write your property taxes off at income tax time.
Right.
You
Right.
can't write off your sewer bill.
Correct.
In business, you could. The
Right.
other thing, by changing it from the taxpayers to ratepayers, there are a lot of ratepayers who don't pay property taxes. All your churches, any nonprofit that's in town, they don't pay property taxes, but they now will pay a higher sewer bill
Right.
because you've taken this debt responsibility and moved it to ratepayers.
Right.
Yeah, we talked about that too yesterday with some of the. I mean, seniors are getting tax breaks. They possibly are not going to get a break on their sewer. The veterans, the disabled veterans that don't get that get to tax breaks,
Right.
they're not going to get a break on this either.
Instead, it's going to add debt to them. They're part of that $4,700 as a user. They don't get free sewer from private company because they were.
And if there
disabled
were, what President Mercado said, if there was some kind of large tax decrease, 18 cents, which would just basically reverse two previous tax increases,
Right.
the large landowners would basically get the break while the ratepayers would.
Well, the
pick
other
that
thing,
up,
you get the new apartments that are over by Blackwood School. You got the new ones going down by the outlets.
Yeah.
They've never paid or have barely paid into the sewer system
Right.
right.
because they're fairly new.
Well,
And they're going to get, if there is a tax, they're going to get the benefit of it. I think really one of the thoughts is that why should the township take the money if the extra money left over from paying off the debt? Shouldn't there be a rebate? Township didn't pay for the sewer system.
Right.
that's
Should
true.
it go back to those who paid for the sewer system? So those who've been, arbitrarily pick a number. If you've been a customer for more than 10 years, you get a big rebate. If you've been a customer for less than 10 years, maybe down to 5
Yeah.
and down less than 5 years, that monies that are left over from after paying off the authority debt and say the township debt,
Right.
those monies that are left over should be given back to those who paid for it originally.
So, Dennis, also explain how right now we say we own the system, right? You were kind of talking about some new developments that are going in. So that new development, they're responsible to put in our sewer systems that we own, right? And then they gift it to the town, correct?
That's
Is
correct.
Is that how that works?
That's right. So that's true for every neighborhood that's in. The authority probably built some sewer lines, especially the main interceptors and main trunk lines and main pumping stations.
Mm-hmm.
But every development who put in their own sewer system to serve the development, and
Right.
probably maybe their own pumping station. Town's got a lot of pumping stations. So all those were built by the developers and then gifted to the authority for free.
Right.
But now those free lines become part of the sale price.
Correct.
So we're paying for something that was given to us, to the township, to the authority at that time,
Right.
for free. So you're
Yeah.
paying for that. And that's again, where's the equity and all that?
I mean, and people are paying for that when a new development is built and all
in
the
the price of the
infrastructure is put in. Yeah, that's
What's
in the
the price of the
homes.
home? Exactly. It's how
So-
much it costs.
Essentially, the people in that development
Right.
own the system in there that's then gifted to the township, which now the township is going to try to sell.
Right. Yeah, it's a really strange, and it's a hard thing for some people to grasp. You know, like that. Like it's built into the price of the home is what that sewer cost that was gifted. Same thing in an apartment, situation where people say, "I don't pay taxes," or "I don't
it's in your
pay a
rent.
sewer
There's no
bill."
question. It's in
It's
your
built into your rent. Yes, it might not be line itemed out and says whatever, it's $45 a quarter is your sewer bill, but that's in there. The overall price. So if their prices are going up by 50%, what do you think's going to happen? Your rent is going to go up. So
Right,
you
that's
100%
exactly right.
affects you if you don't have a sewer bill and you live in an apartment. It still affects you because your rent is going to be
Increased.
affected by that
Yeah.
and increase.
Without question, it goes into everybody who has a toilet and it flushes and goes into public sewer.
Right.
From apartments.
This
to
is their
townhouses, to
problem.
condos, to homes. I feel bad for things like car washes
Right.
who have a lot of water usage.
Well, so that's another point we talked about before, Joe, right? And I think actually it was Dennis's clip that we had played before about the water usage right now is not factored into our bill
Yeah,
for our
right.
sewer.
It's a flat
rate.
rate.
So along that same lines, Dennis, you had brought up at the most recent council meeting about maybe going back and changing. I don't know if we understood that correctly, but there's something else that was brought up about the rates. And Joe and I kind of understood your comment to council about you already have to go back to them about this here. Are you able to go back and change it to a flat rate versus a usage? Was that kind of what your point was?
I'm not sure how the billing is going to take place because it really wasn't real clear in the RFP or otherwise. But if you look at how they bill other towns.
Right.
Okay,
They
so you're
give you-
taking
they give
historical
you-
data from
right,
other
like
towns, how they do
Haddonfield
it.
was $44 if you used, I'm going to pick 50, I don't have the number right here, but 5,800 gallons a month.
Right,
And if you go over that number, you pay more.
right,
And if it's based off your water meter, if you water your lawn, you
Right.
wash your car, if you water your gardens,
Mm-hmm.
your plants or flowers, none of that goes back into the sewer system and requires treatment.
right.
But-
But they're charging you for it.
But they're going to charge you for it, and apparently it may show up in your sewer bill. So I don't think that's been clarified. It's something I asked council, actually asked them to clarify that issue, that when this new system is set up, that it's set up on the fact that a flat unit. If you have a house, usually around 300 gallons a day, but unless you have a house, where we're building now, a house, I pay so much.
Right,
Of them I'm assuming if it's in a condo or a townhouse, you pay a lower fee because sometimes you only have 2 bedrooms.
right.
But whatever, as the case may be. But
Now, along
flat
that
rate.
same topic or that same point in time when you were addressing council, you had brought up about the increase that we were supposed to be, I guess, guaranteed from the bidder. So they had specified that over the course of, was it 3 years, that you couldn't have an increase of more than 9% or 5 years?
First 2 years, a total of 5 years. The first 2 years would have no increase.
Right.
Third, fourth, and fifth year could increase by no more
No more than 9%.
than 9%. I'm trying to see what those exact words. Will not be raised more than 9% over the total of 3 years. The issue I brought up was New Jersey American put in a 5%, a 2%, and 2% increase for years 3, 4, and 5. That's not 9%. You sit back, why isn't it? Because if you put in a 5% raise and then you have a 2% increase on top of the 5% increase that happened previously,
Right.
and the next 2% on top of the 2 on top of the 5 comes out to 9.24.
Right. Well, take the second 2 out of it. It automatically doesn't make the second increase 7%.
Right,
It makes
well,
it over 7.
Exactly. So to me, it was not a responsive bid because it exceeded the value that was being placed in the limits, the wording in the contract said you can't go above 9. So if you have 2 on top of 2 on top of 5, that's more than 9% increase. And that means you have to understand math.
Right. So now also when you're using the word non-responsive. So when an RFP comes out and comes back in for review, right? There's certain guidelines, like you're saying that they want a request for a proposal. Here's what we want, and there was in there the no more than 9%. So if you didn't meet that one thing, you didn't answer the question correctly. So I'm sorry. You got close, but you didn't get it correctly. We weren't playing horseshoes and hand grenades. We're playing with our sewer system that we're selling here. And your point is you didn't respond to it properly. So why should we even entertain that bid when Aqua did respond appropriately?
Exactly. I wanted to touch upon exactly that. Aqua understood math.
Right.
Because their bid for years 3, 4, and 5 was 3%, 3%, and 2.7.
Okay.
And you have to ask yourself, well, why is it 2.7? It's because
it keeps it under 9.
They did the math. Because when you have a 3% raise, do a 3% on top of that 3, and then a 2.7, it comes out to something like 8.9.
Right.
So it came in and matched the 9% raise. And it was, in my mind, it was responsive.
Right.
And the other one was non-responsive is a term you use in bidding processes.
Right.
So it's the lowest responsible bidder. And part of that, you're responsible if you have the experience, the financial backing, the equipment, all those things, and also then responsive to all the terms and conditions.
Right.
And the request for bid, request for proposals. So
and a request for proposal, it's not just one thing. It's not just the 140. Wow, we got 143 minutes. There's also other things in there that you needed to meet, which one of them was the best thing for the people. They thought in putting together that RFP was to not increase more than 9% over 5 years. If you didn't meet that, that makes it not correct. It's not just the dollar amount, just like everything else. It's not a. I don't know what's a good analogy for this here? It's like
I'll give you another analogy I'd like to use, and that's in this case, you're selling a system we already have, selling a system that's been paid off predominantly. Like I said, there's still several $1 million out there, but it's an old system going back to the 60s, and then newer since that time. But the point is that if you go out to buy a new car and you go to a new car lot, and the only thing you can buy is twice as much to 3 times as much as you want to spend, and when you walk out, you're buying your old car at 3 times what you originally paid for.
Yeah.
Because they're saying there's 50 to 6 whatever million of investment that's been done over the years in the infrastructure. You're selling it for 143. That's 3 times higher. And what you end up is your old system again. But now you're going to pay new car loan. In this case, a new loan. You're paying off the debt that's going to be acquired by the private water company.
Yeah.
And that has to be paid off either specifically by Gloucester Township, or it goes into the statewide rate and it gets picked up also by others. That's not to say it's right, but that's
how it works.
Pictures.
Yeah.
That's how it works. So the only thing you can buy is something that costs 3 times more than your cars than when you wanted to pay for a new car.
Yeah.
And you're getting your old car back again.
Yeah, I mean that's a good analogy.
Perfect.
I heard somebody else talk about it being like your house. You already own your house free and clear, and now you have to pay to live in it.
Right. You're gonna
the car one's a good one also. You already own it, and the improvements. It's like okay, what I put tires on. Well, the tires are they're trash now, and they put oil and gas in it, and you're paying for all that stuff now or something. It's getting your old car back that's a great analogy on that one. But I don't know. So where are we at now? We have council has approved it to be up for what a public hearing where
it's a special meeting too.
Right, it's a special meeting. It's not a council meeting. So that's going to be August 8th, I believe, is the date that they did that. It was supposed to be on the agenda for this week, I thought, but then, like you said, it's a special meeting now.
So it's going to be a Thursday night. August 8th.
I could
Thursday
be wrong
night.
with that. We should probably have looked that up.
Yeah.
But we didn't.
That was what was just posted to.
I have that.
I think I saw that on.
But anyway, at that meeting there, it's a public hearing, so there's unlimited time for the public to get out there
Right, you can't
and
be cut
voice
off
their
like-
opinions. But at the same time, we're running up against a deadline of the referendum. And the referendum is what the question that's going to be on the ballot for people to answer. There's also what's called an interpretation. So both of those things we've been telling people. You can't just tell people to get out there and get out and vote no, because voting no could mean voting yes. We don't know how the question is going to be worded and how the interpretation is going to be worded. So.
Right. It's going to be
it's very important
It's going to say, do you want to have your taxes lower? It's going to be something ridiculous like that.
Right. It could.
Sell.
I believe that there's. And I don't know how much you know about referendums. I'm just learning all this stuff to So I'm. But from what I believe, that there are certain criteria that it needs to meet, like who the company is that it's being sold to, the dollar amount, like things like that. But I don't know exactly. I mean, we've talked about it saying. The question could literally not even say sewer in it or utility, and that's what everybody knows they're supposed to be voting,
right.
No against or whatever right now.
Yeah, August 8th at 6 o'clock I have a copy of the.
It is August 8th.
Yeah, at 6 o'clock.
So National Night Out is August 6th, and then 2 days later they have that. So they'll be out shaking hands and kissing babies, and 2 days later will be the.
Yeah.
What's that?
No, I just think there's going to be some kind of behind the scenes push to go out and make this acceptable to people.
Yeah,
we've kind of heard the rumors about them going out and talking to groups of people and trying to make this seem like a better idea. Of course, they flyered all the cars in the parking lot when we held our meeting to talk with people about it.
Yeah.
So there's somebody behind the scenes right now working on a campaign for this, essentially.
Interestingly enough, somebody had just this morning brought to our attention the fact that there was an EFO, which is for a candidate during an election.
Yeah.
That it was not closed from somebody that was running last time, and that was just funded with somebody. I don't know all the details of it, but that's not a normal thing to happen. So it's kind of interesting. More on that later on, but
yeah, it was a recent EFO too. So
yeah, it was Mercado, Nash, Walters, and
Walters.
Nat. I forget who I just said already, but
yeah,
it was Orlando's President Mercado's.
Yeah, and they wouldn't be up for re-election.
Right, they're not up for election, and typically those close after the election, and they usually leave them in debt. Also, those. But this one was not in debt, and it was
this wouldn't be an EFO that would probably be used until 27.
Yeah, but somehow they got $24,000 from three
money.
donors. So
the fact that that's getting money right now,
interesting.
So
anyway,
that's
a whole other topic.
Speaking of, so yeah, August 8th, 6 p.m. at the municipal building.
That's the public hearing for.
It's the public hearing
for the second reading of the ordinance.
Yeah.
Right.
If you've got something to say, essentially, this
is the
time to go say it. Now, there's a lot of a lot of folks when you talk to them, they say, look, they're going to do what they want to do, regardless. But you still have a voice. You still should use your voice. You should go there, and they should know if you're upset about this. They should. I don't know.
Well, exactly. Well, you're looking at increasing your sewer bill from 106 whatever 4 times 43 a year to over $500.
Yeah,
it's a high likelihood that's going to happen. The statewide average they put in the reports is $50 a month.
Right.
So you had $600 on top of your CCMA bill, which has been fairly flat over the years. A lot of the original debt's been paid off.
So actually, yeah, Dennis, that's a good question. I don't know this, and it's been brought up, with just using some napkin math here. At $142 million, how long does New Jersey American Water expect to be paid that back? They're a publicly traded company. They have a for-profit, right? So they're
looking to return 8% or in that neighborhood as well per year.
So that if you did the simple math of what our $46 a quarter bill, would have been, is going to be more along the lines of 100 and something years that they would need to be paid back. So just that simple math alone tells you that your rate's going to go up. You know what I mean? But along with that, I don't understand how when we ran the MUA, and the MUA had recycling section to it, the leaf and all that recycling. Their budget was $5 million. How much is it going to cost a private company to run? I mean, typically, Joe and I were talking about this before. It's typically the government can screw anything up. Like they're less efficient than, you know what I mean, than if a private company does.
Usually,
it.
MUAs are more efficient than municipalities, but that is
okay. Yeah,
that was the point that we made.
The authority has it's dozens and dozens of pumping stations, so they all have electric costs, the operation costs. You have to put a couple guys in a pickup truck and tools that have to go out and visit all of them. They have jet trucks that go out and they clean the lines routinely because you get grease and wipes and grease become a major problem inside both pumping stations and gravity lines themselves. There is a fair amount of maintenance that gets involved with the facility.
But I guess my point is, if we were able to do that for $5 million a year on our budget, I mean, obviously we're not paying back what we invested in it, but it just financially does not make any sense. The number that they're putting out. And I think you had brought this point up before. Like, why is it costing? Why are they offering that much money? They're literally just buying customers, right?
And it goes into what's called fair market value. So it's going to go into their calculation when they go before the BPU as part of their acquisition costs, and they have the right to get all that money back again. So I look at Aquas, and like I said, it was much more closer to what the value of the assets were
on paper.
On paper, yeah. Well,
so how does that
appreciate it? But yeah,
explain like what fair market does anyone determine for what fair market value is? Like
fair market value? Explain that a little bit if you can. To put a cost in, somebody pays it.
So you can really pull a number out of the air, and
you can literally pull a number out of the air, exactly.
And that's what fair market value is.
Yes. Versus then doing something that's more like what's the actual value? What's the amount of money that's been spent on the assets to build the infrastructure? Has it been depreciated? Authorities have in their budgets have to depreciate things. I don't think townships and municipalities have to. So you go through the value of your assets, and you then have a depreciated value because they're X number old. And you look at things. Vehicles have a certain depreciation value. Buildings have it. Pumping stations. Most sewer infrastructure quite often has an age of around 40 years, useful life at least. So you look at all those different aspects, but fair market value is what they can get back on the state law.
Too, and this isn't just this isn't somebody just over somebody you get into a bidding war for a house. Mm-hmm. A person with a ridiculous more amount of money just comes in and says, well, "I'll just give you 3 times the amount for that house." It's not the same because in this situation,
the person whose house is selling it, they have to buy them back.
Yeah. So no matter what they bid, they could bid at $200 million.
Right.
We have to pay it back. So they're bidding essentially with our money, knowing that we're going to have to pay that back.
Right.
So they could,
I don't understand. Here, Dennis, this is a good question for you. During the last time we put together the community meeting to have people out to hear, yourself speak and other speakers that were there, propaganda flyers were put on people's cars saying that, we're spreading misinformation or disinformation or whatever, word they use there. But it was stated like that was wrong. Like what is there something that any of us are missing? What is
wrong? It's the fact that the powers that be within the township,
they want us to sell this system.
Yeah, they want to do it. They want the money.
Right.
I mean, the original acquisition and dissolution of the authority was a money grab.
Absolutely.
Yeah. This is a money grab, a couple order magnitudes higher.
Yeah.
It's funny too because we thought last year that it was a money grab because they do last year it was an election year. They don't raise taxes on election year. Maybe they got themselves into trouble, we figured, and they needed some of that money to cover it so they wouldn't raise taxes. But there was, in the back of other people's minds, I bet they're going to sell this now. This gives them more leverage to sell
100%.
And so you wonder, was it money grab that then turned into a sale, or is the whole thing money grab sale next year?
It did both things. It was their perfect storm. It was like, hey, mayor is up for election in 25. It's going to take. They know how long. Government works slow. Things are take a process.
Yep.
So here along the way, we can grab this money here to help balance this election year's budget. it's going to take us that whole year where there's just Troxel's the only one running, and for an unexpired term, right, or whatever. And then now it's mayor's election year. By the time this goes through, if or when it goes through, our budget for the following year will already be out. We can now say, hey, we lowered your taxes, or we kept it flat, or they will go with lower, right? So we lowered your taxes by $30 or some crap.
Yeah.
We all now have a bill that's $500 a year on the other end.
Right,
he gets reelected. Woo! Big celebrations and and all that stuff. It's. Are we conspiracy theorists? What are your thoughts?
I kind of agree with that, but frankly, if your taxes go down but your sewer bill goes up, what's the cost to the ratepayer?
Right.
The guy sitting at home who's got to, I always say, look at the council and you look at the council chamber rooms and all these giant big tables. You think important decisions get made there, but the most important table is the kitchen table.
Yeah.
Well, mom and dad or a single parent or whatever sitting there trying to work out their bills, and all of a sudden they get hit with a bill that was $160 a year or whatever, and now it's plus change.
Yeah.
Now it's going to be perhaps $500 a year some years out from now.
Yeah.
Not in the first 5 years, but it's going to go up 5%. Well, proposed, but it's going to go up. But as you can see the trend in the other towns who have sold.
Yeah.
40-50% rate increases.
The sad part about it is there's 70,000-ish or so residents in this town, and how many will actually even know that this happened? The first time that they'll find out about it is when their bill goes up, and you'll see the posts on Facebook. Hey, what's going on? Why did this? And we're like, oh my God, we've been screaming this for how long? And just it's really important to get everybody to know. But how do you do that?
Well, because most aren't going to find out either when they go to vote, because most don't vote. we had a 29% attendance turnout in the county and Gloucester Township.
Yeah, well, this is going to be a big year. No
this will be a bigger year.
It's always the biggest year.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, while we're on the topic, not to cut you off, but I think we should just remind everybody, subscribe to this. Make sure you guys are sharing this podcast out about this sewer system so people can learn what Dennis has to say about it, what we're trying to help explain to you guys.
Yeah, people may not care about some of the other stuff that we cover, but this is one that
you guys should definitely share out. And if you like what we're doing here, trying to inform everybody, subscribe to the GT Observer podcast. Go to our Facebook page, follow us on YouTube, and hit the subscribe button.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do all that. How did I get off of this thing here? All right. Anyway, I went off topic there, but
this year,
we got to get the word out to people. Everybody's got to spread the word. And
we'll have a big election this year, so we might get 50% of GT registered voters to come out. You think?
I don't know. Well, because it's presidential.
It's presidential.
Presidential and governor are the biggest races, exactly. And in between,
what is it, governor?
Governor's next year.
Okay.
Yeah, New Jersey next year. New Jersey and Virginia are the only two states in the union that have a governor's race after the president's race.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
so I mean, this is there anything else that we're missing to talk about, Dennis? That you think?
Hold on to your wallet.
What's that? Hold on
to your wallet. No question that rates will go up, and it's unfortunate. It took an authority that I thought was running very well, maintained their system, invested in their system, and was properly capitalized for future projects.
Yeah.
And destroyed it.
Question before we end. You mentioned the lack of distraction with a separate MUA entity. If this doesn't go through, and we just wind up with a sewer utility in 2025, are they better served going back to an MUA, or are we still are we now in a bad spot because they kind of incorporated it into?
There would be costs to go back, just legal terms and paperwork and stuff like that. Yeah, you do have a few minor costs that were saved. The commissioners, you eliminated the board of commissioners. You eliminated a separate council that was there. A separate engineer, but I think the same engineers that usually go back and forth between the township and the authority. So there's some minor savings there. But and now, I guess, does the authority go back to where it was, where it did recycling and all those other things, or does Public Works keep that? And I don't know if you can go back and turn the page. But
it's just an opinion question, and I don't think it's a factual.
The issue still comes down: private utilities have to make a profit for their bond hold, people that own their stock.
Yeah.
The township didn't have to make a profit.
Right. Well, they're
Authority
not. They're
didn't
not
have
in
to
business. They're just there to serve. To serve us, and
Right.
that's it.
Exactly.
But all right, I don't have anything else to add. Do you have anything else to add? I think we should wrap it up here.
No,
or?
that's it, man. I think Dennis, I thank you so much for coming.
Sure,
out.
thank you.
This is,
Yeah,
Thank you.
definitely. Also, sorry you're not going to be able to be there for the meeting on the 27th, but we will have who's is Peggy?
Peggy Gallus is supposed to be coming. I know she's invited. She's the executive director of the Association of Environmental Authorities.
Okay.
So that's an association that includes both water and wastewater authorities, includes some solid waste authorities or improvement authorities as well.
I know
around the
you guys have
state.
worked together for years. She's well qualified
Years.
to speak
Oh,
to
yeah,
everybody,
very much so.
explaining.
She's been executive director for I've lost how long at this point.
Okay, we
You know,
won't
dealing
tell her
with,
you said said that.
legislation and other things that affect authorities.
Right. Okay. So yeah, there's a meeting that you guys can come out and listen to Peggy speak and some others. We have that scheduled for the 27th of July, 4:00 at the Knights of Columbus, which is over in Blackwood near the Jersey
more
Devil
like Hilltop.
Tattoo
Yeah,
or
it's more like
Hilltop.
Hilltop,
section?
Empire Avenue.
Yeah.
Right near Dawn's Deli. If you know where Dawn's Deli is.
Everybody knows we're doing.
Everyone knows where Dawn's Deli is, right down the street from there. But yeah, look up the address. It's Knight Avenue or Empire Avenue.
Empire Avenue.
Look it up online. Be there for 4:00 would be the start time. So get there a little bit early. Make sure so if you get your cars there, then people can put propaganda on your.
Yeah. All the latest dates for everything is also on gtobserver.com and savegtmua.com.
Yeah, save GTMUA. You can also go there to sign up for getting a lawn sign delivered. There's a couple other things on there. So check out that website. Get involved. Help spread the word. Tell your neighbors. Please, we need everybody's help on this.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks
Thanks,
everybody.
guys.